Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Daryl Urbanski, your host as always. And today we are joined by Matt Kesby, founder and chief AI officer at GoTeam and Multiplai Tech, a forward-thinking leader revolutionizing people outsourcing through AI. With over a decade of experience and a proven track record of triple-digit revenue growth, Matt has empowered more than 300 businesses by building dynamic, high-performing offshore teams across 7 countries. From his base in Cebu, Philippines, he champions innovative strategies, delivering 5 times faster results in operations, finance, sales, and marketing. I've asked Matt to join us here today to share his story and visionary insights on harnessing AI and technology to drive sustainable growth plus operational excellence for tomorrow's lasting success. So, Matt, thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing?
Doing great, Daryl. In fact, outstanding. Thank you for asking. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to this. Obviously, AI is a hot topic, but before we get into that, how did you even get into business in this? Were you an entrepreneur? Were your parents entrepreneurs? Did you pick up the torch and carry it forward? Do you come from a long line of business leaders or what?
It's such a great question. Actually, grew up with my sister behind our parents' fish and chip shop in Brisbane, Australia. So fast food takeaway business. And it was really busy. This is like before the McDonald's days, right? So that was like the ultimate takeaway location. And so I grew up with this really strong work ethic of at 6 years of age, I'm in there in the shop working beside my sister. And it wasn't until we were teenagers that we learned about things like pocket money. And our parents suddenly went, yeah, that's right. We better pay you some money for all the work that you've been doing. I look back at it now and think, man, it's just the service-orientated nature of interacting with clients and just the work ethic of small business. It was a really wonderful foundation for everything that's come post. I think always destined to be master of my own destiny when it comes to business as a result of that, growing up as a kid in small business.
Yeah, I love that. So what were some of your earliest entrepreneurial ventures?
I've got this photo in my mind of in year 12. And so I was sporting like most at a younger age and into Stillwater rowing. There's the head of the river, the big event. And so I got T-shirts screen printed for the event and was selling those to all the different kids at schools. And so I've got these pockets full of cash from selling them on the head of the river day, completely not licensed to do it, completely not probably breaking all the rules on whatever. As a kid, you just get in there and get it done. That was a fun one. There's a bunch of stories, but that was a good one.
I love that. What were some of the biggest challenges that you faced in your career over working in and learning what it means to be an entrepreneur and in building businesses and working with businesses? What are some of the biggest challenges?
Yeah, I think sometimes in reflection, it's a challenge and a strength, or a weakness and a strength, is the naivety that we have as young entrepreneurs.
What are you talking about?
It hasn't left. It's this beautiful innocence and naivety of that anything's possible. I actually don't think you want to lose that either. Now, that naturally comes with all its challenges along the way because you don't know what you don't know. And so it drives this constant iteration and innovation and switching approaches in order to get product market fit, what we'll talk about in a more mature world these days. But it's a good thing too, right? If you don't know what you can't do, you just get in there and do it versus the person who says, oh, it can't be done, it's not possible. And that mindset ends up being so important. Now, I think underneath that is all the detail of the challenges, right? I think for every entrepreneur, probably had those times of, am I going to make payroll? The stress of managing cash flow and like I've had many ventures along the years, right? In very vastly different industries. And that I think today stands me in good stead for all of our teams that we can work in multiple industries now and be successful because of all the different variety. The challenges we all face in business, the reality that it's always a people and technology game is the way I see it. And especially as we talk more about AI and automation, can't forget that this is actually a people play first and that we're then enabling individuals to achieve greater results. And every time we go through change, that requires a change in human behavior. Have you ever tried to change your own behavior, Daryl?
100%. Habits are... for years now, I don't do it as much, but for years I used to, even when I first came and met my girlfriend, I when we first moved in together, I said, listen, if we're going to live together, we got to get straight on some things. I got a big whiteboard and we put it on the wall, and it was Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And then there was like a list of things we had to get done every day. Eat 800 grams of fruits and veggies, walk 10,000 steps, get 7 hours of sleep, do something to generate leads. Like we had, and so it was just check. And we would gamify it where we were just like, as a couple, competitive, try to who's more consistent, and not only more consistent, who gets the checklist done first for the day. And we are what we repeatedly do. Therefore, excellence is not an act, but a habit. I think I got that. I don't know.
That's such a rare thing, right? For people to like that behavior, which is a habit of yours, is a rare thing. And if more people can build that into their daily lives, they'll find that, as I say, excellent success comes as just a byproduct of all those beautiful actions. And changing human behavior, changing our own behavior is always a challenge. It takes deliberate intention and action, even when you don't feel like doing it.
It's harder when you get older.
Harder when you get older, harder to change someone else's behavior. And ultimately, as organizations, like we're essentially made up of the behaviors, habits of the entirety of the team. And it was once one of my mentors said to me, in the definition of culture, how do you define culture? And he said, when you get most of the people, most of the time doing the most important things, then you've delivered a culture of execution. Because most of the people, most of the time, doing the most important things aligned to what's most important in business goals, you get this culture of execution. And what most of the people are doing most of the time, whether you like it or not, that is the culture of the organization. But keep it focused on the most important things, and then you become unstoppable. And aligned to that for me today too is that we've all heard it every year of our lives. We're in a time of the most change we've ever seen. Always going to be like that. That's always going to be the way. And yet right now we really are. Like it's extreme. And there's a real gap between some of the changes that individuals are seeing, especially with AI, versus where enterprise and business is in its adoption. There's quite a gap there. And it really requires a whole new paradigm around creating an innovator's culture and driving critical thinking and agility to be ready for this change.
I love that. I think that's incredibly powerful. I know that for once upon a time, it was, I forget where, but I heard about the 3 types of goals. If you're really serious about achieving something, you have an outcome goal, you have a process goal, and then a performance goal. So the outcome goal is I'm going to do 100 push-ups. Then the process goal is that every day I'm going to do push-ups for 10 minutes. And then the performance goal is I hope to continually increase by 5 every day, or whatever that is, right? Because then it's like the outcome is dependent on the process and then how I show up and run the process. Because you can have a great process, but if you don't actually work the system, will you get the results? And so that kind of feeds in. I just wrote down activities which run processes which produce results. When you talked about our company is the behaviors and habits of our team, I think that is amazingly powerful. And this is coming into, it's almost like it's an automation thing, like garbage in, garbage out, right? If you automate garbage processes, you get garbage results. And that's where a lot of people, I think, get tripped up. They got to find, like you said, like message, market, medium, like fit. And if they don't have that, I've seen people get in front of 1 million people and have 0 sales, because 1 million times 0 is still 0. And so it was like they're trying to find a tech solution to a non-tech, to a human problem. And the human, they're not connected to the market. They're not tapped in. And so I think what you shared is incredibly powerful. What, aside from like the habits, or if we want to get specific, what are some of the specific habits and skills and behaviors that you think are most critical for entrepreneurs?
Now in particular, I would say, because I get this question asked to me regularly, especially both for entrepreneurs, but also about kids coming through university right now, because everything's changing. And there's 2 traits that I think are going to put people in like best standing for the future. One is agility, so the ability to change. And the other is critical thinking, because we now need to look for, whole vast permutations of different actions that we might take to get a particular outcome. And think more broadly, more holistically, because we're actually going to see roles will merge now that we've got this new enablement. We see it right now in software development, where a software engineer, a product manager, and a designer, all those three can merge together because the tools we use mean we're developing a lot faster. Now, that's going to make its way into every role. And I heard Bill Gates once said, if you've only got one area of skill and that's what you're hanging your future on, it's a short-term future. You need to be having 2 or 3 intersecting areas of major skills to drive you forward. Now, I might have heard him say that 15 years ago. Today, that's coming into fruition.
Yep.
And one of those has got to be AI and the mastering of it. And the World Economic Forum recently released its data on the state of the jobs market, very tied to the entrepreneur to look in what's the state of the job market. And that between now and 2030, the expectation is that 60% of businesses will be disrupted. Those disruptions, they're not just AI, but it's also just the world economics, aging population.
Yep.
And that 75% of businesses are expecting to navigate this path through skilled workers. And I put it out there as, where are these skilled workers? Because new skill sets required. And that it's back onto organizations to actually, and the entrepreneurs in particular, to, as you're learning new things, to actually share that knowledge for the betterment of all and to upskill the entire workforce. Now, the good news is that same survey also said that 70 or 75% of those businesses said that they will be heavily investing in upskilling.
Right.
I think that's another part for entrepreneurs right now, is that we need to re-look at that, the way that we educate our team members. And not just assume that everyone's got the answers.
Right.
And depending on the size of your business, I still remember being a very small business. Now, today we've got 1,100, 1,200 employees. So different size scale to earlier days when it was like 5 and 10. And the larger we get, the more we need to delegate, and we need to look more at frameworks and principles and systems in order to unleash the full potential out of everyone. And as in early days in leadership, it's just command and control, tell everyone what to do. And that's exhausting because you got to come up with all the answers. And now it's, okay, how to create that culture. And we do a lot based on frameworks first, values and frameworks, to then look at strategy, and then goals, and then systems and processes and procedures and steps. So
I love that. Yeah, I think high agency is a really key critical component, because low agency is going to be replaced by robots and AI. If it's a low agency skill, if it's a low agency task, and it really puts pressure on people. It's almost liberating in a certain respect in terms of self-actualization. This blew my mind. This ties into AI, but I only learned this a year ago, that at the moment of conception, between a sperm and an egg, I don't know if we talked about this before that we did the interview, but when the sperm and the egg meet and they merge, there is a flash of light. They see this at fertility clinics around the world. When the sperm and the egg meet, there's light. Sometimes there's multiple flashes of light. And that means that each of us literally has a spark inside. Like, you have a spark inside you. I literally started with a spark of light. That is amazing to me. And so many people, we talk about like the zombie horde, and that half the people are non-NPCs, non-player characters. And so in some ways it's really liberating, because I think if you can ignite that spark inside of you, that is the fire. That is the fire inside. And a lot of people, it's dead because they've had, you should do this, you should do that, you have to this to survive. And so in some ways, once you get through the chaos, we may emerge on another side where now everyone's enabled to really become in tune with that inner spark. And hopefully it's not destructive. But I think that
and so I love the analogy, right? So there's that spark of energy. And I was only chatting to my 9-year-old son yesterday about the fact that we're actually just we're generating electricity all the time, right? This is how our neurons fire off the electrons, and we're communicating within ourselves. So we're this source of energy that's constantly generating. And, you even beautifully tapped into often people get beaten down in their mindset. You should do this, you should do that. And that people feel like choices removed from them. And then it's really easy to fall below the line into like victim language, blame, excuse, denial, quit, versus staying which is a fear-based response. And this is really nicely tied to where we're at with AI and change at the moment. So fear-based response, blame, excuse, denial, quit, or the love-based response, which is proactive, taking responsibility, accountability, and ownership for thoughts, feelings, and actions.
Yeah.
Now, when we can help in our language as leaders, entrepreneurs, with our team members, to shift the communication to responsibility, accountability, and ownership. And it's a big deal, right? It's not easy to do for us to communicate this way on a regular basis. Then we shift into also being mentors, not just coaches, but mentors to our team members to unleash their potential. Now, that's to light the spark inside of the other, but it's very difficult to light that spark or fire in someone else if it's not lit in you first.
Yes, 100%. 100%.
And so it's that's sometimes I think, and let's call it out, as an entrepreneur, it's hard. Sometimes it's lonely if you don't have a network of others that understand the challenges that you go through. So it's on to us to constantly play at a higher level to lift that energy to inspire others. Because if your flame's not lit, you're not going to light someone else's. It's going to be...
And sometimes you can't even light it for other people. There's a quote, I'm spiritual, not religious, but there's a quote, don't expect others to understand your grind when God didn't give them your vision. And that speaks to it as well. Like, how am I supposed to light your spark? Because it's your spark. It's not my spark. And so how do I know? And so I always said, for when it comes to teams, one of the best, somebody asked me, how do you motivate your employees? And I said, I have to figure out, this is the language I actually use. I said, I have to figure out what their spark is and then align their role in my company with their spark. Otherwise, it's just all for show. Oh,
we're back.
We're back. Yeah. So sorry, I'd said that. Yeah, I don't know if you heard that, but the employee motivation, it's about helping align a role in a company to that individual's spark. That's the best sort of motivation. If you can build a bridge for them to their spark, their envisioned future for themselves, and align it with what they're doing for you and with your company. Yeah, you might have churn because they outgrew a role and you didn't have a path for them to grow. Hopefully you do, but that's okay. They'll speak highly of it. They'll hand it over. It's way better. I remember I've had a lot of gurus call me in to patch things up, but they sneak me and my team in the back door. And there's one guy, if I said his name, a lot of people would know it. And he asked me to help with a CRM system they use that my team and I are really proficient in. And I could just tell it was like if you'd walked in someone's apartment, you could see someone's ripped the TV out of the wall 2-3 times and someone's kicked over the fridge. And what I realized is that people were sabotaging stuff on the way out because he was just a dick to work with. He was just a total jerk. I couldn't believe it. I offered him a 30-day, we'll go in and renovate, whatever we need to fix the leaking ship, so to speak. And then I didn't promise any ongoing engagement. After that 30 days, I was done. I'm like, sorry, man, I got other stuff to do. I can't wait around. And I knew what exactly the problem was. You constantly had people leaving that way. And it's there is a geometry to life, so to speak. And if you align yourself in a certain way, you can hopefully benefit people exponentially and benefit from benefiting them, if that makes sense.
It makes total sense, because I think also it's quite easy for us to get caught on the next bright, shiny thing, next strategy or idea. And yet fundamentally it's principles that are driving everything here. And if we can get now, I spent close to a decade as an independent consultant for Franklin Covey, who are best known for 7 Habits of Highly Effective People and Leading at the Speed of Trust and 4 Disciplines of Execution. And so I'm always so grateful for that experience, because all of the Covey teachings are all about principles of effectiveness. And when we get this language into our psyche, it actually solves a lot of the challenges because we've got a framework to work from. And we through this evolution of understanding these, and we've often all got different language for things like goals. Like you shared a good one there around outcome and process and performance. And there's all different ways of tagging and labeling these things. But getting that common alignment, fundamental things like, and there's a great work on, I might have mentioned this last time we were together, there's a book called Nonviolent Communication. And inside of it, in its framework, it also talks about feelings and needs, and that we as human beings, we have needs. And if they're unmet, we struggle and fight and conflict occurs. And it's not being needy, because having air and oxygen to breathe, that's a
Yeah,
need.
that's a
No one
need.
would say you're being needy.
Yeah, yeah.
Some might say that some consume more oxygen than others, but we're not. And so if we can understand all these different needs that a human has, then we align to that, we realize that we get better outcomes. So people have a need to know that they matter, that what they're doing is going to have impact. How do we as leaders ensure that the work that they're doing is aligned to the organization's mission or purpose, the strategy, the goals, and they can see they've got impact? And then when they can see they've got impact and that they're progressing, that does all the beautiful things in our neurochemistry and hormones, and that we feel good because we're moving forward and we're winning. And I think that that becomes an important piece for everyone. Can I see that I'm involved in a winnable game? Am I getting progress in my life?
Yeah, I love that. One of our past guests, Alex Sharfin, has this theory that entrepreneurs are momentum-based beings. If we feel we have momentum, we feel great. But if we don't have momentum, we get fresh, like we got to do something to get the gears turning again. Yeah. So that's basically saying we're only as needy as our unmet needs. And one of that is growth. All things in nature just grow. They grow as big as they can. A tree, right? The ant colony, it'll grow as big as it can. So where do you see the future of things? If you were to look into your crystal ball, so to speak, the next 5-10 years, what do you see? What do you think the world and workplace looks like? What are you paying attention to?
Yeah, this is such a great question. Sometimes when you get these questions, hey, asked me 5 years ago, it would have been a very different level of clarity on what it's likely to be. And I think today the change is exponential. Now we're living in a bubble at the kind of tip of the spear of what's happening. I don't even know if those analogies go well together, bubble and tip of spear. But it's probably good thought.
I get it. We're good. You're good.
And so we're seeing things that the average business is just not getting exposed to. So it's hard to contemplate the speed of change that is about to occur. And for us, therefore, about skating towards where the puck is going, right? And that famous Wayne Gretzky saying,
Go Canada.
And I firmly believe that within 5 years, the output that an individual is going to be able to deliver is 5, 10, 20, 30x or more, because they'll be enabled by a whole team of AI agents that are supporting them to actually deliver the work. And that individuals, now this is just focusing first on knowledge workers sitting behind a computer, right? That they're going to be orchestrating a whole range of autonomous AI agents, which for those that aren't in that world yet, think of it like a small computer program that's able to go and access and take action on systems. And we envision, for the benefit of team members, that they could be more flexible in hours. They could be down doing an activity at their kid's school, and on their mobile phone, they've got transparency into their AI command room that's showing that all their agents are doing the work. Something stops or has a problem, they can check it out, just speak to it, redirect it to do what it needs to do. Just like if you had a whole team of people that were executing the work, and if they had a need or request or work stopped in some way, you would do your role as a leader to give guidance, to clear a path and keep things progressing. And so to me, that's where we're going to be within 5 years. 10 years? Wow, brother, that is a really interesting question, because I think that if we have quantum computing by that stage, I'm not so sure. But one thing here's what I firmly believe in all this transition. But before people freak out and start going, oh my goodness, all these jobs are going to disappear. There's a whole range of new jobs being created that we didn't even consider. Massive upskilling required, massive personal programming to handle all this for sure. And it's always been the case. It's just going to happen faster than before. But so 5 years time. Oh, here's the part. I believe that the driven human being will always be able to add value compared to what the AI can do. And the reason is we have personal drive. So long as that spark is lit inside you. Okay. So we're back to that point.
Yeah. I love it.
So long as that is there, that concept of agency is way more creative in thinking, because it can bring new thinking together that the model hasn't done or
Right.
isn't
It's not
driven.
it's not driven that
It's
way. It doesn't
no.
have a soul. They've been saying that. So I'm with you 100% on this. So they've been saying that humans are going to be replaced when tractors came out. We don't need farmers anymore.
No.
Robots are going to do everything. Calculators came out. We don't need mathematicians and accountants, and spreadsheets came out. We don't need accounting departments, and QuickBooks came out. We don't need CPAs. And what happened was the productive people became way more productive, and the people that were non-productive had to have a hard talk and a long look at themselves and go, why is it taking me 2 days to say 2 + 2 = 4? And maybe I need to evaluate my life decisions and find something I can be passionate about and do and reskill. And I think that's where we're entering. You had mentioned the need for the skill to learn with work with AI. Just a couple days ago, prior to us recording this, I read that it was announced in China. It's been mandated that all grades from grade 1 up must have courses on how to work with and use AI. It is mandatory. And that's like a quarter of the world's population. And they also just announced that approved regulation for autonomous drone taxis, which is like a little mini helicopter that is a 2-person thing you sit in, and it will fly you autonomously to your destination. So you got to find something of value to trade with the world. We do have a spark inside of us. We've been making tools since we figured out we could club things with bones. And this is all just a new version of a tool. And people are like, oh, we're going to create sentient life. I really don't know about that. I don't know until we know how to make that spark of consciousness. I don't think we can clearly articulate that we have a soul. We might create a seek and destroy robot that can fool us into thinking it's human because it's analyzed 10 billion conversations and it can statistically predict what the response is supposed to be. But does it have a soul? Like, this is almost like a really deep, gets into this sort of deep philosophical thing about who are we and why are we here thing at this point, because at the end of the day, problems are markets. And so there's a great idea. Greg Glassman, the founder of CrossFit, has this great talk I use all the time. Talks about that ultimately markets are unknown and unknowable. If I asked you how many people were in market for a car today, you might be able to look at keyword data and foot traffic, but ultimately it's unknown and unknowable, and it fluctuates every minute of every day. But everybody can acknowledge excellence and recognize excellence. And so if you focus on solving a problem in the most excellent manner, that can be a North Star that guides you through. And so this is where now we see this happening geopolitically around the world. We've got archaic power structures and banking systems that are in some ways being given a run for their money, maybe we'll call it that way, because it would create a seek and destroy entity using these kinds of tools versus focusing on excellence. And that's the power of free markets, is because a free market, me, the end user of a product or service, I vote with my dollars the best option in my vicinity that I have access to, and let the spoils go to the best, or whatever that I bastardized that saying, but let the winner take the spoils. But if you have monopolies that are propped up because of crony capitalism, and you got the cousin Kevin rubber stamp because cousin Kevin's he's on the autistic scale somewhere and he can't really do anything but stamp something. And so you got to pay $100 to get his rubber stamp so you can do the thing. Listen, to build a house in Vancouver right now, I think it's $1 million in fees. Government, you're not even breaking ground. You're not even buying materials for the building. If you want to build in Vancouver, it's something like $1 million worth of regulatory paperwork and fees, and just government in the middle collecting money because they have the biggest gun in order to build a house in Vancouver. And does that benefit the species at all? Or is that a parasitic entity that's latched on? And it's the innocent puppy dog syndrome. Listen, you have to let me do this, because if you don't, this innocent puppy might die. You need to pay me $1 million to make sure the innocent puppy doesn't get crushed by a tractor. Okay, but is the cure worse than the disease to a certain extent? And these are some of the questions we have to discuss. And the problem is we don't have even distribution of information. The major problem.
And so you look back to like school and education, right? Yep. And like, as I said, what China's done, but if this distribution of information, if the education isn't happening at school level, then we're not actually breeding critical thinking, agility, new efficiencies, better ways of doing things. We're developing this just do it the same way, rote learn, like the whole that part. Now I'm very optimistic about kids coming out of school even if they haven't learned how to apply AI yet, that their speed of knowledge increase is
Right.
actually going to
Oh, yeah.
improve. Like we've seen it with, the key is the business adopting it, or the, let's say, universities or college
Yep.
or wherever, that you're going to get this just-in-time learning change
Yes.
occur, rather than having to study everything, rote learn, remember it. Maybe adult learning, the forgetting curve tells us that 50% is lost within the first hour, 90% within a week. So it's just like our brains are not really set up
I
for.
love that you said that. I've been saying that since I was 19. I hitchhiked across Canada 6 times, and I realized something, because I would be hitchhiking and I get dropped off and I got to find my way to the youth hostel through this city. And if I looked at the map before I left, I'd forgotten it. But when I get dropped off and I'm lost and I'm hungry and I'm cold and I'm in Canada where you will die. Like, I was in Winnipeg once and I was wearing I didn't have, my backpack was empty because I was wearing every article of clothing I brought and I was still shivering. And then I asked someone for directions. They're like, look, you walk, you take a right at that corner, you go 5 blocks down, you make a left, and then you go straight and you go around the roundabout, and it's the second house on the left. I remembered every detail because it was just in time learning. I've never heard anyone else say that. And it created this theory for me that you have to do rote learning for things that are maybe someday useful, but when it is useful now, and that's part of the why having a huge library used to be such, now it's all online, but have a huge library, because when I need something, I grab the book, I open it up, boom, I know where it is. I get that just in time learning, and it's in there forever. I love that. Dave, I'm sorry, it's your interview, but I'm on they just did a study in Nigeria, and I think it was a great 6th grade class. They had a 6th grade class have a personal AI tutor for 2 weeks versus the general curriculum. And it was like the 2 weeks they learned, it was like general class. They learned what it took the general class either 3 or 6 months to learn. They learned in 2 weeks with a personal AI tutor.
Yeah.
And so it's all up for grabs now. This is the fairest and most level playing field that anyone has ever had in history, perhaps, because all of these advantages, even these generational advantages, they're gone. I went to an AI conference months ago, and when I went there, Google had a booth and these banks had a booth. And I realized once ChatGPT came out, everybody had to rebuild all their tools from ground zero again. Because if you didn't have the AI component, you were left in the dust. And we're having that again. And there's been 3 restarts since ChatGPT's come out. And it's huge. It means if you have high agency and a passion and you're out there to get it, and you have a vision to solve a real problem that other people agree they want to pay to have solved, you're never going to have the opportunity you have now. And those that dive in and lean in hard will be rewarded, and everyone else is going to be punished. And it's because the world is a real meritocracy. A turtle will have 200 kids and only 30 of them are going to make it. You know, some gazelle got to be eaten by lions. I don't know how to tell you this. Like, so which side do you want to be on? And I think I guess my next question is, since you're the AI adoption expert for businesses, what are some of the best use cases now for someone to make sure that they're not the gazelle that gets eaten?
Yeah. The first thing I encourage everyone to do is actually go back to basics and get clear on what your goals are. Because if we jump into, and I'll recommend a few, I promise I'll do that.
Yeah.
Rather than going, oh, quick, let's go and implement that, I want you to go back a step and say, who do you serve? How do you make your money? And if you're really clear on your vision, your mission, your values, if you've got frameworks that help guide you even better, understand strategically where you're heading to. And I've got some thoughts on that too. And then you set your goals for the year for the organization. And then you go and have a look at the fact that we all still have these pillars in business: marketing, sales, customer service, operations, how you actually deliver your service or product or widget that you make, IT, human resources or talent, finance, and if you're bigger, you've got legal as well. And then, of course, everything breaks down in a huge amount of detail underneath. But unless you've got clear goals at each of those pillars in business, any use case becomes irrelevant. In fact, it might take you in the wrong direction. And just like a plane taking off, heading from one city to another, if it's off by 2 or 3 degrees, it's not going to land at the end. And so what do we actually time the use case towards? What's the goal? And if we just started in marketing, okay, that's a great place to start. Then there's a lot of metrics in marketing. You've got return on ad spend, your leads, clicks, views on the website. It's just a huge amount of metrics. For me in marketing, the game is marketing qualified leads to hand those to sales. If we were to, let's just simplify it. Now, there's a lot of that, the marketing qualified leads need to be done at a customer acquisition cost that is sustainable for the business. So there are sub metrics that are critical as well. But let's just start with marketing qualified leads and understanding the current state in the business. How do we actually get leads today? And look at that process and actually map out the current process for obtaining the leads. So you've got the understanding. And then look at where could AI be applied, AI and automation, to speed up those different steps. So if you imagine in your mind that you've got a process map and that each of those blocks on the process map essentially is a procedure or a task or a step that needs to be delivered. You're then looking at, okay, how could I get AI to do that step, AI automation? And then the next version of that is to just start from scratch, because you might have a brand new strategy that you hadn't thought of before. And interesting talking to different businesses at the moment. I might meet with them either as a supplier or a buyer. And the question, I had one the other day with a cybersecurity business that we're looking at, and the question was asked to me, "Hey, where did you find out about us?" And I almost felt embarrassed to say, on Instagram. But that's a reality. And chatting to another business leader he's got 700 clients, they manage 700 websites. And he said, I can't get the cut through. I send emails, I send messages, short messages, I send snail mail. It's really hard to get the cut through because everyone's so busy. There's so much noise. But he said, you know where they are, though? They're on Instagram at home watching their cat videos in the evening or whatever. It was pretty funny the way he said it. And I thought that's so true, right? People are using that for their, rightly or wrongly, their checkout, their recharge time.
Yep.
And so it is a requirement for businesses now to get that social media footprint and presence. And that's a hard thing to do. If you want to dominate one of these platforms, especially around short form content video, not only is it's a science, you could say it's an art, but it's really a science. And that there's a volume that needs to be done, there's a quality, you've got to understand your ideal customer profile, you've got to make sure you're writing the content that's going to suit to actually solve a problem for them.
Yes.
And then if you've got that great scripts that are written, then you need to shoot the video and then edit the video with great text overlays and make it attractive. And then if you really want to get the leads, then you need to give something of value, not just say, buy my stuff. You want them to a cheat sheet or whatever it's going to be for them to download. And then get that data into your CRM and have follow up. And so to do that process and do it well and publish every day or maybe multiple times per day, you're going to need it in the current thinking, but maybe I should say previous, but current focus, you're going to need a team of people to execute it.
Yep.
And if you're the talking head for the organization, you've got to carve out a fair bit of serious time to actually do the shoot and speak to any entrepreneur. And that just sounds completely overwhelming to figure that out. Or we could look at this through a brand new paradigm. You still process map it out so you can see all the steps. And now the game can work like this. We use an AI agent to create the ideal customer profile that's grounded on the information of your products and services and website and maybe other publishing data that you've got. And then have an AI agent come up with, let's just start with 30 great hooks for messages to attract that ideal customer profile. Then an agent who's the world's best expert on short form copywriting or Instagram reels or YouTube shorts, whatever you want it to be, then writes those scripts, notifies you once they're written so you can read through and check and approve them, maybe tweak if you want to. And that when you're happy with those, then automatically hands over to another agent that then goes to a service like HeyGen and pushes those scripts through and actually has your personal AI avatar that looks like you, sounds like you, like that. This stuff is so incredibly good now. And that creates those videos for you. And then another agent takes it to another service to do all the beautiful overlays. Another agent now writes a cheat sheet that's directly related to that video for that ideal customer profile, then sends that over to a system like ManyChat which will handle the automatic responses from people at the bottom of that video. A good script will say, hey, if you want to learn more about this, comment ABC below and I'll send you my cheat sheet. Now that cheat sheet content can be sent via an AI agent to Canva if you've got a template set up and actually create that for you. And then another agent can automatically set up your ManyChat campaign. This whole process can have AI agents and automation and then execute these on a day-by-day basis. And then you could have another agent with automation that then reviews
the data and the performance. To come up with the strategy for how do we optimize.
Right. And even one of those alone is that Instagram at the moment is rewarding. If you've got a really top piece of content, you can post the same piece of content again a day later separately, and the algorithm will reward you because it performed well previously. And what do the platforms want? People addicted to attention. That to me is like one of the foundational use cases for lead generation for businesses. That there was no way of being able to compete in this space 6 months ago without AI agents and automation.
That's powerful. That's super powerful. And a lot of this stuff is within people's reach because there's all sorts of automation tools. I actually built something like that using Airtable and make.com, which was InterGrowMat. This is when GPT first came out. One of the first things we did was create a table that did the push-pull and that sort of stuff. And then Google wasn't happy with AI SEO content. And now they're happy again. And then if those things were blowing the dust off it going, okay, we need to retool, fix this thing. So we're starting to build a lot of AI tools in-house now, but it's just crazy what's possible. And it comes back to, it's just a complete level playing field. And you don't have to be a programmer. You don't have to be a developer. You just need to know the use case and just go get the tool. Somebody else has probably put a shingle out there with the tool. And in a lot of cases, you have to think about what would it cost for a staff member to do this, right? It's the ROI on the output. It's the cost per whatever, right? And robots, they don't take breaks. They don't take holidays. They don't get sick. They don't have babies. They don't have conflicts with people. And so by using this, at some point, you're still going to need human-to-human interaction, but at least the human interaction will be higher quality because some of that sniffing out process, the grunt work of some of it, the less fun part of it can be highly automated.
Yeah, you just look at the challenge of, if we stick on this use case as an example, because generating leads is important for every business, right? The lifeblood, you can just get your revenue, everything's profits there, everything's easier. If previously you had a team that were doing this and Monday they need to come up with a creative, and even if they use ChatGPT to help them come up with their ideas and so forth, if that person's away that's sick, all of a sudden this doesn't continue on. We've got to relook at this in a different way for continuity and consistency. And I like your point there earlier that you don't have to be a developer anymore to do this type of setup. So we build a whole range of AI products, and we've got a no-code AI agent platform that we've built specifically to prep people up to be able to create these agents and run the automation for the future. And when we started building like 12 months ago, the challenge was the world of AI agents was the home of developers. No one else could do it if you didn't have the skills. Now, today, you don't need that. And what you benefit from is having the strategic thinking about what you want to execute. And even that's tricky, right, in this new zone. So we build a range of templates and make it easier for people. But even that then is just inspiration to how you further personalize it for your own business. And this is one of these new skills area.
And I think there's, as much as people might be worried about gloom and doom, I take heart that Adam Smith wrote about this. I like bringing this up in the book Wealth of Nations about the specialization of work and how important that is. And he talked about how if you just had a team, I think it was like 2 to 4 people making pins, just a simple pin to like thread clothing, that they might make 10 in a day or 40 in a day if they were really good. But a team of 10 can do 4,000 to 10,000 per day. And it's because of the specialization of work. And because everybody has a specialized role, they optimize and they become hyper efficient and they build mechanization tools to optimize that one thing. And so even now, like there's ChatGPT, but you talked about ManyChat as a tool. And there's 100 use cases, but the AI is not, it's too generic. It has to be specialized to that use case, to that niche, to that industry, to that purpose. And there's a whole lot of opportunity there for people, I think.
And this goes to where businesses will end up needing a foundational AI product that can then take the action on all of these other products and their data. Like there's definitely a need to get the data layer clean in a business. That's not easy to do. But then a foundational product, which is essentially the AI agents that are then interacting with your data and your customers and other SaaS services. And look, I lean into this concept because that's what we build, right, to benefit businesses. But that is and there'll be more models, there'll be more specific tools with different use cases. And we're back to this whole changing behavior challenge, right? You've got to learn something new and then apply it. Like, how many times have you jumped on to a new SaaS product, signed up for a free trial,
learning
got
curve,
super excited, maybe got the billing started, got off, and then you forgot about it and didn't use it. Now, this is where the world changes forever and a day now, is that you look at that piece of software and how it's going to benefit you and what the outcome is going to be and how it's going to deliver upon the goals. And then rather than having the human go and run everything in it, set up an AI agent to then execute against that so you can get consistency and deliverability. That's where we move to next.
Yep. That is powerful. Matt, this has been such a great call. I have a page of notes. People may want to listen to this more than once, make sure they got all the goods out of it. I do want to be respectful of your time, and I know you've got a ton of direct reports, a ton of clients, a ton of projects going on. So before we run out of time, if people want to learn more, you've got some tools and stuff. Where do people get engaged to find out more?
Super. So they can go to multiplai.tech. So we spell multiply with an AI on the end, right? So you can see it on my shirt, and we'll put it, if we can add a link in the show notes.
That's
but the one thing
MULTIPLAI. That's right.
Yeah, .tech. But if in the show notes, if we can also leave a link for everyone. I'm really passionate about people learning how to apply AI at work. And our new Multiplai Tech Academy is a place where we'd love listeners to be able to go along, and for their team members as well to access their foundational learning. We're constantly updating this. And we'll give some special access for free there. So we'll make sure that's in the show notes. And because it's always changing, there's so much information on the internet, sometimes it's confusing of where to get started. And we've got a very clear framework to make this easier to understand. It's currently being adopted in universities, colleges, even at the school level in the Philippines, where we've got a mission to train 100,000 Filipinos in AI and automation right now. But it's also making its way into US-based colleges and unis at the moment too. It's good foundational info. Would encourage everyone to consume it and untangle the overwhelm that many might be feeling with AI.
I love that. So go check out multiplai.tech, MULTIPLAI.tech, TECH. That's MULTIPLAI.TECH, multiplai.tech. Matt, this has been very inspirational, very empowering. Is there anything I haven't asked you about that I should have asked you about?
You and I could probably talk for 5 hours. That's always a risk. Look, I think I'll end on this thought because it's something that's always helped me. It's that if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. We say if you want to go fast if you want to go far and fast, GoTeam and Multiplai Tech. That's our little. The idea that you have to do everything yourself in this space is going to not bear the fruit that you desire. It's even for us, right? We've got 55 developers. We're doing things with AI that before some of the things that, believe it or not, OpenAI and Google were doing, right? Because we can move faster. And we have high-end, like MIT super nerds that are consultants to us as well, right? So no one ever does this on their own. Everyone's got to come together and do the cross learnings. And yeah, there's a lot that we give away for free in that Multiplai Academy because we want, from an SME perspective, to just make this simpler and be less overwhelming. So check that out. I've got a new book coming out shortly, which is actually called Untangling the AI Overwhelm. Look forward to perhaps get some of the listeners to get that into their reading category. It's going to really simplify it. It's got a big believer in frameworks. So you've got structure, and then you can have all your novelty within the framework. But it makes it really simple for businesses to review how to actually get started, where it makes sense, and review their businesses for the future. Keep innovating, keep iterating, because our business models for all of us are going to look very different in 5 and definitely in 10 years'
10
time.
years. Yeah. Yeah. You might even be setting up a shop on Mars. Who knows? Matt, thank you so much for your time. Like I said, knowing you have your own clients, your own direct reports, your own priorities to take care of. Thank you for coming and sharing with my audience tonight. For those, again, go check out multiplai.tech. You can look up Matt Kesby, Mattkesby. Give him a shout out, send him some love. And just thank you so much. Appreciate you. And we'll have you back on as an update once we're a little bit further into this AI future we're headed towards.
Looking forward to it. Thanks, Daryl. Thanks, everyone.